Up next, you're listening to an exciting episode of We Are Family Therapy Radio, Pittsburgh Fashion Police. Dial 611 and stay tuned for more. This is priceless. There's so much going on here. We'll be back after this. Today is October 5th, 2018. I haven't really woke up quite yet and had coffee. I do believe that when we look at overall statistics when it comes to crimes and assaults, and being as it is October and it highlights on topics regarding domestic violence, I think every day, because the crime rate is what it is, and we've been discussing some and trying to articulate some of the concerns that maybe families might have on abuse, domestic violence, because to me, there is a whole umbrella of things going on with crime victims. You can look at a variety of crime victims. Most people don't think about it. Police officers are crime victims in a lot of ways because a lot of them do not go to work thinking they're going to be, maybe in this case when we refer to the Stanton Heights case, that they would be ambushed and dead. So I know a lot of people assume that, that while there's danger to a job, mostly what police officers' responsibility is basically much like a caseworker. They're just there to take a report. The rest is up to the criminal justice system. They're initially the first ones on the scene when we refer to the first responders. Same thing with paramedics. And for obvious reasons, carrying, in this case, a gun too, and having a service weapon is because of police work. Now, generally speaking, I know a lot of those who have any concerns about this. We've been crime victims when we were little, and because of our cases and going back years and looking at what's going on today, I look at what's going on in these dating experiences and relationship experiences, because they are, in fact, to someone who's been a victim of abuse, very real. The reality of abuse and domestic violence is individual, depending on the circumstances, depending on what's going on. If anything, arguing with the police to me is irrelevant, because the police officers are the ones that see it firsthand. When we refer to the court process, because obviously there's some things we want to discuss about the court process that goes without saying. A lot of people spend their whole lives trying to figure out the abusers. You need to know the court process, how good the court process is if you work through it and you get to the point where, in fact, the district attorney takes a case. Now, in this case, we have wrote letter after letter regarding concerns about abuse. So writing letters and keep at it. Don't ignore a problem. Don't let it go ignored. That's the whole deal. The individuals who passively ignore it are part of the problem. Most of the reports that don't get to, whether it gets to the police or gets to the individuals it needs to get to, it would be too late for some of these individuals, because in fact, that's the whole point. You gotta make sure your police reports or your reports are there. By law, caregivers, legal caregivers are required to report abuse or neglect. It happens every day. It must be reported immediately. Most victims, depending on their grade level, don't have the ability to speak for themselves. Therefore, we have a few good men who can arrange a meeting and keep your receipts while you're at it. Independent researchers right now and have been looking into these type of patterns of behavior. There are patterns in relationships and concerns that address by the courts. If you have any concerns, make sure your police reports are in and submitted. It would be appropriate to have it submitted prior to this. As you know, most crime victims oftentimes are disabled by their assaults. I know, in fact, I have, and many have, been disabled by their abusers, whether it be sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, or mental abuse. It's all very much a reality for an abuse victim who spends every day coping with the abuse, coping with the experiences. Crime victims don't ask for it, number one. There will be no justifiable reason to abuse somebody. There is no good reason, explanation. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of, it wastes, abuse of any kind, to me, is a waste of good, valuable time. There are other things to do in life than have to deal with abusers. And I'm saddened that we have dealt with that many abusers. Behavior patterns of abusers. Some have similar and common traits. When abuse and rapes occur, why it's important that district attorneys process their paperwork for obvious reasons. I mean, they're not just there to deal with abusers every day. There are other things going on within our government and our system. Cleaning out some of the problems, though, is initially one of the concerns. When we look at what's going on, some of the concerns Americans have every day, the concerns in a region like in Michigan, the concerns about beheading Americans, that's a reality because they're not used to waking up to that kind of criminal behavior, especially when you see people that are not from America and they have those type of behavior patterns. And to me, in America, it's not about religious issues at all. They can make it about religious, they can make it about those things, but in truth, the level of violence that comes from other parts of the world is a reality. When we look at the relationship with America and Israel, for almost 40 years, most people have seen Israel, United States, not so much at odds at all. In fact, very much similar in a lot of ways. Better border security is one of the concerns Americans have. You look at the border in Israel and how controlled and contained a problem is because of the level of terror. It makes too much sense. Why there are patrols, why there are better job employment and benefits in the long run. Just opportunities, future for high school graduates, a future that is much more better. It's obvious that these concerns needed to be addressed. We can address other concerns that initially we want to get to the point why they do the security patrols, because there are children, there are adults, there are people that aspire to have dreams. Let's just take, for example, Miss Teen Pennsylvania. I was a Miss Teen Pennsylvania in 1987. I know what it is to want to achieve something in life. I know there are kids. As long as you're around good, supportive people around you, it's not hard to achieve these things. In fact, it's quite simple if you focus on what you want in life. Why we have a Project 3 Recovery? Because we have been abuse survivors and we know how difficult it is. We know how it is to live through abuse. We know the nightmares. We know what it is. We know the reality of waking up to no parent, nobody. I was literally left out there, stranded in a highway in freezing temperatures. Since I was a little girl, I have been surviving abusers, so I understand. I was as I stated, like what I have learned about a lot of things in life is that if you believe in something long enough and you trust the people around you and you're supportive of each other, believe me, there are good things that can happen for all of us. I know we joke about a lot of things, but all jokes aside, when you start hearing about military tribunals, when you hear about these concerns, the first initial concerns most average Americans are going to have, to me personally, is that none of our water and food supply is contaminated. That means that we want better inspections. We want a lot more, and as far as like dealing with children and families, especially disabled, properly cared for, raising children and kids and have proper training. I just read a report here just recently about proper gun training for our teachers. To me, I think it's vital. As we've seen an increase of abuse, and especially this time of year in October, there's always more an increase of missing children. So we need to pay attention to the Code Adams stickers. If you are here in this region, in Pittsburgh, you will pay attention to the regions that are predominantly where children have gone missing. Like in Rochester, Pennsylvania, there was a bloodletting case, and a young girl, a teenage girl, had gone abducted and murdered. So to me, these are important things that most parents need to pay attention to. No one knows more firsthand than the victim's families themselves, the ones that wake up every morning to wondering where their kids are or what happened to their children, or the terror of having lost or buried a child. No one knows better than a parent who has had to bury their children over abuse. No one knows better than some of these families who have been victims of abuse, who have survived and are still surviving today without their children. Let's take an example of a couple who grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. They were kids. They were playing baseball. They were hanging out with their friends one night. They were going to get a movie. You probably heard of the story of the Shannon and Christopher Newsom, Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. This is the level of crimes that some of us have experienced. These are the level of abuse exceeds what is humanly. I mean, it breaks the glass ceiling when you think about some of the assault cases against some of these families. And believe me, I'm pretty sure there are abusers out there that probably want to mimic or maybe even continue with that crime spree. And thankfully, because of law enforcement doing what they're supposed to do, and not only doing it, but exceedingly protecting the rights of victims and families, that they stop the crime from happening to somebody like maybe their neighbor. Shannon, you think of victims like Shannon and Christopher, I'm reminded of all the awful, evil things in this world. A crime like that, to me, it's hard to put words to the type of abuse that they endured. So to me, in October, Domestic Violence Month, for obvious reasons, prostitution cases. Here locally, there was a 5-year-old boy who had passed away due to injuries because of a drug case. 5-year-old little boy here in Butler County. Assaults that occur in the hotels, moving vans, full of receipts, because children and families just want their children and families to be safe tonight. Bed bugs. Children who have been lost or gone missing or don't know how to contact family. It's been a way of life for some of us. February 1985, I walked in and I confronted a pedophile for the first time in my life. I had dealt with a man who had raped boys. I heard the screaming sounds of little baby boys and girls in the back. Not girls particularly, but little boys. I mean, my heart was beating faster than what I was capable, faster than what I was used to. And since that time, I have really it's been an uphill climb for me and my family and the people around me. I was only 14 years old when this happened. I was in trouble with truancy, and that's basically all I did wrong. And to confront abusers at 14 years old, and since that point, it is personally, I'm happy that there is more enforcement when it comes to drugs and abuse. The less, the better. The less drugs, the less abuse, the better it will all be. Thank you.